Hey, it's Gary King here. We're doing a 2020 Vision catch-up. It's been a long time since I posted anything. I've got a couple of things that I've been working on that I will be putting up online. One to do with body structure
Anatomy.
and anatomy, right? I'm going to be putting that up over the next few days, I think. So we haven't done anything for quite a long time. We've basically been watching a lot of other people who are much better than we are at this, all to do with, the old world history stuff, basically how everything has been embellished upon fate. So we got a little list here, but I'm here with me brother Neil. But we did one a long time ago now, and we decided that again, part of our job in this clown show that we're all part of is to, at least question events and things that are going on. Some of them very minor, but also very funny, and some of them a lot more serious. So, of course, we've got the aftermath of the Olympics, and anybody that watched that surely must have been scratching their heads thinking, well, hold on a second, there's a few anomalies, put that in later. There's a few things in that sort of would make you scratch your head and say, well, come on, really? But also to do with the musical aspect there, of course, the controversy that's been created by, again, various parts of the media to do with who is and who isn't a certain type of person. But we'll get into that. And then obviously we had the old DT shenanigans in the States, all leading up to the election, which of course, ironically, 5th of November, Guy Fawkes night, for those that know all about that. The old yellow and blue, why is that all being rolled out again? Then some very interesting things that I watched. A lot of the stuff, of course, Chris and Dom from Sheep Farm have covered. The old world history, Chris, old world exploration, John Levy. I mean, it's just a whole bunch of stuff. It's not just one subject, but it all leads to the same end, which is, in our opinion, is that the public is being misled. And I'd like to say as well at this point that, whatever the algorithms do and that, if you take this video down, this has got nothing to do with any feelings towards other people at all, so you can, we hate using the terms, but you can drop your hate speech BS because it's got nothing to do with that. We're just questioning. Now, of course, for me, from a musical background, I've pretty much come to the point now where I really don't want to have anything to do with it anymore. I still enjoy it, especially a project that I'm working on at the moment, but the whole satanic, demonic agenda that's in music now is just a big no-no for me. I don't, I've never been part of it, and I certainly don't want to be part of it. On that point, there's another couple of things which I hadn't written down, but I will bring up. So, to do with people I actually know, who are now, unfortunately, in my opinion, suspects on the radar. So anyway, with that in place, we're going to have a little chat about a few bits and bobs. And we'll start off with the Olympics, the opening and closing ceremonies. So what you reckon, mate?
Well, there's so much information that's been published online about the structure of the opening ceremony, what it was all about, how much money was actually put into what was being described as, if I can use the term on some of them, abortions. Yeah, I'm sure I've ever know abomination.
Well,
you'll have to change it.
Yeah, no, I mean, basically, whatever way you look at it, they're taking the piss, right?
Well, I mean, you just got to look at what the structure was and what, as good old Keith Lemon would say on one of his shows, what's the message? What's the message? What was the message that they were trying to actually tell people? Because it wasn't just about art and creativity. If your eyes are unblinkered to what is going on around the world, and there are many, many people that write stuff about sporting events and how it's structured and the finances and where money comes from and where money goes from it. I mean, there was a big article which I read on how much revenue the Olympics was going to make over the period of the 16 days.
Yeah.
But what you have to do is you have to look into what the opening ceremony was about and then what the Olympics was about. And as you know, I've got into this numerology.
How numbers are all put together.
Are all put together, and when you start looking at the events and the amount of people that were in the events and how many medals are won and all the other different types of things, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in a bit or maybe another time. if you're into numerology and understanding what's in the Bible and is in information which is fully accessible on the internet, it poses a few questions.
Yeah, exactly. And again, you know, like, I mean, so many people have, I mean, we're just going over some old ground here, but so many people have covered, you know, again, in really good ways. You know, they tell you that these sporting events are about bringing people together and stuff like that, which of course they're not, because competition isn't about bringing people together. It's about some people winning, some people being very disappointed. The opening ceremonies, every time, they always tell a story, don't they? And of course it is an arena, it's an event, it's people going to worship other people for what they're able to do. That's where they line up for hours to take photographs of these people. And again, nobody, you know, whether it's sport, music, whatever, nobody's saying that these people aren't talented and work really, really hard to get where they are, but it's the end result. Why is this such a big thing? And you look at the opening ceremony in France, and of course, you know, it was as tacky as anything, but loads of people thought it was cool, right? It was tacky. The whole thing was, you look at it, don't really have to look too deep to see that there was a lot of mockery involved, right? And I don't think you're not really supposed to be taking the piss out of anybody, are you? Not really, right? So when you looked at it like that, and of course, you know, the big sort of so-called table, you know, again, really the guy actually had no comprehension that it looked just like a very famous painting, you know. I mean, come on. But why would you do that? If we did it, we'd be hung, drawn and quartered for it. But because it's an event that goes out through certain organisations, it doesn't really take very much to work it out. But you watched it, didn't you, on your own?
Yeah.
And we went up to a friend of ours to watch it. You know, of course, you got the music side of it as well. And now I've been involved in music all my life, right? And I can tell you right now, I don't care what anybody else says. They all mimed, right? They have to mime. It's not possible to be able to do that in that short stint, you know what I mean? It's like at the Super Bowl, they don't actually wheel this massive stage out, build the stage with all the lighting and do all that in half an hour. It's not possible to do it, right? So just like with Eurovision, of course, Eurovision this year was another bizarre case of affairs. So obviously we knew, didn't we, that the opening ceremony was going to be exactly the same, because that's the agenda that they're pushing, right? A certain frame of mind, a certain behaviour and so on. But, you know, I scanned through a lot of things on the net, and I was amazed. Why I was amazed, I don't know, but I was amazed at the amount of people, especially young blokes. You young blokes out there, you got to get your asses into gear and realise that you're being bamboozled, right? Okay, so you got guys that are freaking out over lady bath bag and so on. Everybody mimed, but 9 out of 10 people believed that they were singing live. You could see they weren't singing live, right?
They've also had sound technicians and experts that said it's an impossibility to get a stereo sound playing down a 6 mile stretch, or 6 kilometres, should I say, I think, stretch of the River Seine, sounding exactly the same at the point where personalities were meant to be singing, and 6 kilometres away it sounds exactly the same.
Yeah.
But
Well,
other
I am
people said
an
it's modern,
expert in this
modern
field.
technology.
I am an expert in this field, and I've been into enough live shows, and I've played it enough live shows, right, to tell you that none of those people were playing live. And like you just said, they'll tell you, well, what they had was a mobile studio, which they do have for live events, and the sound went in and then was projected out. It's a bit like the old moon landing when when a bloke picks up the telephone and calls them up on the telephone and everybody thinks it's real. You know, it's like that. You cannot pull that off in that short space of time. What if an ant blew? You know, they can't take that risk, right? But the point is not saying, well, they mimed, so therefore it was the fact that the people actually believed that these bods were performing live, and it was all what a great performance, an amazing performance. And it's like, why even bring it up? Because again, this shows you how easy people can be led. And I think for me the great one was the fact that we see a heavy metal band, you know, and they're playing whilst there's heads being chopped off and blood squirting out squirting out all over the place and so on, right? So this heavy metal band, French heavy metal band, performed. They might as well be standing there with tennis rackets, right? And then I looked at some of the metal forums, you know, and the metal magazines online, and they literally wetting their pants. Oh my God, this is a great thing for heavy metal. And yeah, it is. It is a great thing that they were given an opportunity instead of having the usual suspects, although they did have a couple of the usual suspects, but they mimed. So all that great performance, they mimed. But the magazines were, online magazines were promoting it that they were playing live, and they weren't. Now, can that band play live? Of course they can. You know, great drummer. And I even saw points where they were saying like, well, they probably had microphones inside the drums. It's like, no, they didn't, right? They didn't have any microphones. There were no leads. There were no cables. It's all mimed. But the point being, like I said, is that if you can get a huge group of people to believe that was real, how easy is it then to get them to believe that multiple other things are real?
Well, it's like the point that you said about when the particular artist that you just mentioned was singing live on the River Seine, and they showed the event actually taking place, and then they switched over to her, and it's not raining.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the rest of it, all the way down the Seine, it's absolutely tipping it down with rain.
Yeah.
And did all evening.
Yeah.
Up until a certain period of time. And at the point that she was meant to be playing, it was raining.
Yeah.
But it wasn't where they were.
No.
So miraculously, somebody said, no, it's not going to rain there.
Yeah. But they again, the whole point of it was, you know, it's like our mum was talking to a friend of hers, and her friend in England was saying, you know, the guy that was playing the piano on top of the roof, pouring with rain, and he's playing the piano. Mum said to me, he's not playing the piano. Well, how was he playing the piano? He wasn't playing the piano, right? That's why he never saw his hands, right? He's pouring with rain, and there's a grand piano. You know, normally you open the lid on a grand piano. That's part of the idea. And then you mic that up to get that sound. So the guy was just playing to playback. That's what you would do, because you can't take that risk. You know, and then there was that that so-called woman standing on top of that building on that tower doing the operatic singing and everything. You know, do you really think that? Of course they wasn't, you know. But again, like I said, it seems only trivial, but the point being is that they made out that it was live. They make out that Eurovision is live, and, you know, go around the back of the drum set, and the drummer hasn't even got a bass drum pedal. So if it's easy to deceive people or to have them think one thing, how easy is it then to go, well, look, they'll believe this, they'll believe anything. And of course, the last 5 years especially, to us anyway, has proved that people will believe anything that is on the TV or the mainstream media. Anything that they tell you, they'll believe.
Well, we were talking about it yesterday, weren't we, with specific words like indoctrinated.
Yes.
Institutionalised. And we're not talking about somebody being locked up in an asylum or some other place like that. But we're talking about indoctrination. And I read an article yesterday when we were talking about it, about basically when did it really come into fruition.
Yes,
And what we're really talking about is early 1950s. With publication, and it is said on that article that I read, that you know, the introduction of television and adverts and commercial stuff, and getting people to believe that this is the best product is the way. And it's exactly the same with music and sporting events.
It's all the same.
People will believe what they see because they're told this is the greatest event in the world. This has taken years of planning. You have to be there to see it, to believe it. They're already telling you that.
That's right. Yeah.
They're already telling you you've got to see it to believe it.
Yeah.
And what was the one that I read yesterday? The word I can't remember.
Don't
but
matter,
it talks about talks about unfreezing somebody's concept, re-educating them, and then refreezing them. I'll look it up. We'll have to
I know what you mean. Yeah.
So, you know, I'm going to change your opinion on something. I've got to convince you that your opinion or your thought process is completely wrong. I then got to give you the information that I want you to have, or the organisation or whatever it is wants to have. And then I've got to reinforce it and make you think that that is the right thing. Anything before that, you'd obviously got wrong.
Well, anybody that listened to anything that I talk about, I always use my brother as a grounding rod for certain subjects, because, like I said, I've been involved in, as everybody knows, in music pretty much all my life. So I'm not going to have somebody that has no idea, that doesn't even know what a note on a piano is, tell me that I'm wrong and they're right. And of course, my brother's background, as most people would know who've listened to any of these, is military and police, and a little bit of fire brigade in the middle. So he comes from that background where, again, like he just said, like you just said, mate, is that you're told one thing, then your mind is changed to believe that this is the right way, and that's how it carries on. So your idealisms. So of course, when you look at the old compulsory education, which kicked off in the early 1900s, right? You had a bunch of wealthy family members, one in particular, who turned around and said, we're going to educate your children, and if you don't agree with that, we'll throw you in jail. Of course, unvoted, we know voting doesn't count, unvoted, and everybody goes along with it. And it starts off with reading, writing and arithmetic, and then it gradually creeps into all these other things that most of us never have used anyway. And then you've now got these situations at universities where, you can have 200 different courses, underwater basket weaving and stuff like that, and so on. But I mean, people have to learn, of course they do. But yes, you're manipulated into a way of thinking. We've adopted over the last 5 years, especially, again, is that the rule of thumb is 10%. If you just said there's 10% chance that something that you're being told isn't correct, then you have a reason to question. And that, again, all this nonsense you see online about misinformation and so on and so forth. How can it be misinformation if it's an actual paper that has been written by somebody that's well respected, who brings these points to the table? And this is another thing to do with the old world buildings and so on. We'll get onto that in a minute. Just do a quickie on the old carry on with the Olympic thing. Of course, there's been all this controversy this year of of some of these athletes, and not necessarily who they are, but what they are, right? Well, we won't go into that because there's so much of it anyway, the boxing. But Neil showed me some pictures yesterday that I've put in this video, and it's like, come on, there's no way you can pull that over anybody's eyes that they're a bunch of ladies, especially the Chinese team.
Yeah,
I mean,
really?
Team. I mean, come on. They look like, I think there's 5 of them, they look like 5 blokes out of the second Rambo movie. No, the third, which was the one where he was in Vietnam, where he went to rescue him. They look like those blokes out of that film. I mean, because that's basically what they are, And a little video that I'm going to put up, or I've already put up, depending when this comes out, which will show you how body structure works, and you just got to work it out for yourself. Now, on that front, you've got all this something phobic, right? You're either this phobic, that phobic. So, phobic means fear, right? Well, I'm not afraid of any of these characters, so that can't be used, right? If you're a liar, you're a liar. It's as simple as that. If you're somebody like, I don't know, let's just say the James Bond girl who openly admitted that she used to be a guy, or the Victoria's Secret model who openly admits, hey, that's a cross that you've got to bear, and when the time comes, there's a possibility that you may have to answer for that, right? I don't know, but there's a possibility one way or another. But it's when these characters tell porky pies, right, which they're quite obviously doing. And of course, you saw all the characters are putting the medal in front of one eye, doing all the symbolism stuff. They're all flipping the devil's horns and all that. And then people go, oh yeah, but it's just a fashionable thing. And it's like, well, maybe for some of them it is, but really it's something that you should not be doing, and you should look into, because it won't end well in one form or another. No,
it's like the goat, isn't it?
Oh, I mean, come on, really?
Goats, greatest of all time.
Yeah, what a load of old crap that is, right? And the funny thing with that as well, because we saw that Simon, what's his name?
Biles.
Simon Bile.
Biles.
Simon Bile, yeah, look, right, with the old goat necklace. Why is that popular now? It was never popular before, but I clocked this some time ago, and I might slot some pictures in on this, I don't know, but with the old Jovi, the old BJ, and his wife, his wife, and she's got this this necklace on, which looks like it's like a polystyrene, the sort of thing that you'd hang on a kiddie's wall, or like on like a WC sign, this giant thing with goat written on it. It's a goat sign round the neck. The tackiest looking thing you could, if you were old Jovi, you'd say, what is that?
Yes,
Well,
the type of thing that the Beastie Boys would have worn.
yeah, like the big old Volkswagen Beetle thing round the necks, right? And you'd go, if you were the old Jovi, you'd say, here, Dorothea. You're not going out with that on, are you? What is that? Well, it's the greatest of all time, John. That's what you are. Well, then shouldn't I be wearing it? Why are you wearing it, right?
Yeah.
Very suspect picture.
I like the article that Snoop put on, or was put in the press, because obviously he was on more than one occasion filmed with the old
Baphomet head.
Yeah, the old Baphomet head, and there was the article where he says, it had it all starred out, but Snoop says, "Leave me the fuck alone."
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because he's getting, or has been getting, grief
Over it, right?
for wearing the necklace, and it's just a necklace, and it's not a symbol of anything else. But
Yeah, but if it's not a symbol of anything else, why are they all doing it? I mean, you've got to ask the question why they're all doing it, right?
it's a phase now with tattoo artists to get the old
Oh yeah, because they're exactly, yeah. Well,
the satanic.
like we said, is if you just look at it realistically, these people, right, whatever they are, they're either doing it for a gag because they think it's cool, or they're doing it because they actually believe this is the way things are going, and they're part of that team. So if they're doing it for a gag and so on, they're obviously got something wrong upstairs anyway, right? Because if I did it, people I know would think I was out of my mind and wouldn't speak to me anymore. But because these people are the plastic celebs, as Christendom call them, they get away with it, and then they coerce subconsciously other people into doing the same thing. So if they were just doing it for a gag, it's cool, it's edgy. Well, it's not cool and edgy because it's been going on so long now. It's old and boring. It's like all the symbolism stuff we talked about before. Me and Sarah talked about, the one eye, all that Masonic nonsense. So, all right then, so let's push that to one side and say, right, these people actually believe that their God, so to speak, is who, right? And they go, all right then, okay, fine, right. So that therefore means they have to then believe in the Bible and God the Creator. They have to. Because they wouldn't be the opposite if they did. They just say, well, I'm not doing that. There's no point, right? If you see what I mean. They have to. So if you're a follower of Jesus and God and you believe in all the writings of the Bible, you therefore have to believe in Satan, right? And it has to be the other way. But the big push on this satanic image, and they're all doing it, right? It started off with a few of them, but now they're all doing it, right? And that was, again, a part of this ceremony. And, of course, the closing ceremony.
Yeah, I was just going to say that leads quite nicely onto...
I mean, very well done. Oh, we're not mocking the way that it was done. I mean, it's very well done. It has to be well done. But, I mean...
It was very interesting once it concluded straight away, the bloggers and news feeds and stuff like that said, again, it had a very dark connotation with the fallen angel, the Voyager, returning to Earth, the golden light, or whatever they called it. I can't remember what they called it. But again, it was Lucifer returning to Earth, and then the raising of the 5 nations, the rings of the 5 nations. People talking about it again, about being a portal in time.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and there's portals popping up all over the place, right? People are all like, yeah, this is great. And of course they had the characters, the dancers were all in the grey, like Aleister Crowley's Greys, and building the Tower of Babel and all this kind of stuff, right? Let's just say that is not the case at all, and it was all to do with Greek, the original Greek mythology and so on. But what if there is a possibility that it isn't? That's the thing. And I know a lot of people turn around and say, oh, you'll go mad. You keep looking at all this kind of stuff and that. And it's like, we look at all this stuff, we find it very entertaining. And also, as again, we listened to Chris and Dom last night on a sheep farm with Ian Davis, and they were saying about an exciting time to be alive. Now, we've said this before. Again, we rattle on a bit here, but you're here for a reason, and you're here for a short period of time. Nothing that we know is going to change anything. Only you're going to change yourself and your ways of thinking. And when you leave this realm, you will then hopefully leave it with knowledge that you've acquired by your own means. No one's had to teach you this. You've looked at something and you've said, yeah, that doesn't make any sense, but that does. And you don't need anybody to tell you that. And it's like in the early days, in the old, when the 91 divot kicked in, thanks Chris and Dom, I took one look at it and I went, nah, this is absolute nonsense, right? And I still believe it's absolute nonsense today, and nothing will change my mind. And then when you look at previous events throughout our so-called historical narrative, you can see it's just a carbon copy with a different name. It's like changing, in the UK, changing poll tax to property tax. So they basically changed the name, and everybody went, oh, all right, then that's okay, you know. But when you look at it, and yesterday they were on Chris and Dom, I'll quote them a bit in here because we have been catching up with them, and they're, you know, again, they're very funny, is that now the UK, we say UK anyway, UK controlling government are looking at a way to help teach young students how to use critical thinking. Hang on a minute. Critical thinking is a personal thing. You can't teach somebody. What they actually mean is they're going to teach kids again how to think the way that they want them to think.
Yeah, I always remember that they used to talk about in education, and obviously I qualified as a teacher in one of my professions because I had to do a diploma in adult education and look at studies and stuff like that. That people used to be able to question everything. You've got to question things so that you can establish your own beliefs in what's being told. In education now, they're basically saying, no, you can't question me.
No, exactly.
This is it. This is what we're teaching you. This is the schedule that you're going to be taught. This is what you've got to study. And they tell you where to go. Write an essay on this thesis. This is where you can find the references and all this different type of stuff. But what they're actually doing is they're redirecting you. Mm. And one of the things I remember in education, they were talking about, is it actually redirection or is it misdirection?
Yeah, exactly.
They're misdirecting you.
Yeah.
Because you might go and say, well, I want to have a look at what this person's saying. No, we don't want that because we want you to write on this.
Yeah. A great example of that is in The Truman Show, which I would imagine 90% of people have seen. When he's a kid and he gets up and he says, I want to be an adventurer like an explorer like Magellan, and the teacher goes, oh, don't worry about that, Truman, everything's been discovered, there's nothing else to see anymore, or something like that, and he goes, oh, okay then, because teacher said so. Now those teachers are the same group of people that were also taught a certain way, and then their teachers are, you know, and that's not taking the rise out of teachers. You know, they actually believe that. And we have a couple, which we'll get onto the subject of in a minute, but a couple here, you know, university lecturers who have all kinds of accolades for what they've done. But in my opinion, and I've actually told them myself, they have no common sense. It doesn't exist anymore because everything that they were taught came out of a book that somebody wrote that they don't know and have never met and don't even know was even real, right? You know, just quickly, let's say, going back to the Olympic stuff, you know, there was a bunch of stuff going on there that had nothing to do with sport whatsoever. There was a bunch of stuff going on there that was used to, again, divide people, which is why you've got people even talking about it, like us. Divide people. You've got people that actually believed that group of people were women, when it's quite obviously they're not. But if you tried to explain it to them, if they even saw it, they would say, well, does it really matter, right? And I said to my neighbour, he came over the other day because he's recording here, and I said to him, I said, you know, if that's what you want to do it and be honest, right? If you're deceiving people, especially young people, then I'm afraid, like we've said before, that is when the line gets crossed, and you know, you just don't go any further than that. You know, it was funny to see some of it. I mean, the rider on the grey horse, you know, I mean, you don't have to look into too much to see what that was all about. And I personally believe that these characters do believe that that they are, we are in a certain world run by a certain character that is running the show. Things may change, and I just think that they want to take as many of them with them as they can, personally anyway. But so anyway, our little Olympic thing, there's obviously a lot more to it, and there's so many people that have done stuff on it, but it was another way of dividing people. It's like that whole thing with taking the medal away from one person, giving it to another, and then taking the medal away from that person and giving it back to, you know, it upset loads of people, upset, you know, Romania and so on. That's all done by design. These things. Oh, that was the other thing I was going to say, just to finish this Olympic thing, is I hadn't seen this. They basically, on the big main stage, when they came to the end of the running chap and all that appear at the end, you had the bull's head, the Baphomet bull stroke ram's head on the stage. Absolutely no reason to have that there at all. And they raised the Olympic flag upside down. Oh, that was a mistake. You don't actually seriously believe the biggest sporting event in the world, they would raise the Olympic flag upside down by mistake. That was raised upside down so that people who see what's going on are just reminded that the whole world is inverted. It's upside down. That's why they call it an upside down world. And again, just quickly, Matt from Quantum of Conscious, Matt from Quantum, he uses the term, this isn't my first rodeo, right? The people at the creepy table, they know what they're doing. As he calls it, it's a not nilk moment, right? All the conspiracy theories and all the truthers out there that believe they're all on the right path, you know, everything is by design. It's all worked out years in advance. It has to be, because it's, you know, you could literally set your watch by some of this stuff, you know. But anyway, yeah, we're just going to finish on the Olympic thing, and we're going to talk about the CRISPR-Cas. But Neil's just pulled up something, mate, and yeah, right. How about this one then? So this is how they create things to change people's perceptions.
There's so it's on a particular website. I don't suppose there's any problem, as it's in the public domain, horsenetwork.com, and the headline says, "Are you suffering from Olympic closing ceremony disorder?" That was one day ago that was put up. It says, New York. Do you feel sad, and why? So I'd go and have a full read of this, because I'm not going to read it all out.
No.
More tired than you used to be? Do your arms feel weak and flabby from a conspicuous lack of flag waving? Don't despair. You might be suffering from Olympic closing ceremony disorder. I don't know what hit me, says Tim Hapless, a retired hospital scheduler and father of 3 children, who says he woke up last week with an incurable case of the summer blues.
What, after the Olympics?
After the Olympics.
See,
yeah.
I mean, come on, really. But you see, again, people read that and then they put that to perhaps how they're feeling. They've had a few late nights and they go, "Oh yeah, I think I've probably got that as well." And that's how easy it is, again, to make people think a certain way. It just has to be out there online. People do some research and that, and we're doing the same thing. You know, we feel a certain way because of the research that we've done. But anyway, so what we're going to talk about now, and this kind of transfers its way into what we were saying about the Olympics and various characters in the Olympics perhaps not being who they maintain they are. So I pulled this up a little while ago, and another guy that we've been following, his channel, he made a thing on this just a short while ago, a few days ago in fact, and I'd seen it before, and it's one of the TED Talks. There's 2 of them. Funnily enough, both of their names are Jennifer. So you've got Jennifer Doudna, whatever, and then you got Jennifer Kahn, right? Well, the scary one was Jennifer Kahn. And this did a talk, and you got all these people sitting there with their mouths open, gawking, you know, like, oh, this is incredible, talking about CRISPR-Cas and how this can be used to tamper with, basically tamper with. They like to use the word change or repair, but they mean tamper with a person's DNA. Now, everybody's DNA is different, as most people should know, and it's not something you should be mucking about with, right? Because as soon as you start tampering with our individual cells and stuff like that, we're not talking about curing cancer here. We're talking about actually changing the way body structure, not your body structure, but changing the way that your body works. You are no longer a human being. You are now basically a cyborg, so to speak. You've been genetically altered, and I'll see if I can find the link to it. But basically, this character says that we'll be able to change the sex of. They used a cow, for example, at the beginning. Take away one thing, put in another, and basically they're talking about eradicating females. It's as simple as that, because that's basically what she says. And if you say she doesn't say, that's not what she said, yes, that is what she said.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots on it. There's so much research that you can do online about it, but if you want to actually have a look at something, have a look at CRISPR-Cas9 and what it does. And it basically says, in brief, without going into it full, it's a unique technology that enables genetics and medical researchers to edit parts of the genome or the genome by removing, adding, or altering sections of the DNA sequencing. Right? It's currently the simplest, most versatile, and precise method of genetic manipulation, and therefore is causing a buzz in the science world. There's lots about controversy and what they're going to be able to do with it and everything else. So it's there online for you to see, but people would go, oh no. But if you think about it, if you believe that they created a DNA,
Dolly the sheep.
Dolly the sheep, and they're able to construct ears through DNA manipulation and using animals' DNA and stuff like that. It's been there for a long time.
Of course it has. I mean, we got a friend right in England, and he's an older chap now, and he believes absolutely anything that the television puts out, right? But he came to visit, and he actually sat there and said he believes they're cloning people, and we nearly fell off our chairs, right? It's like, really? Yeah, he believes that they're cloning people, right? He's seen some things that don't add up, and he's a he used to be an industrial electrician, all this kind of stuff. He's not just some bod that sat around and did nothing all his life. And if they're tampering with human beings, and that is your
it's genetics. It's what you're born with.
Yeah,
it's your physical DNA.
The term transhumanization. That's what they're doing, right? So let's just say again, you take the 10% rule, and a guy that I did a podcast with, Mr. E. He's done a bunch of stuff which is on Odyssey, because of course if you put it up on YouTube they'll take it down straight away. Are there going to be any women left? If they're tampering with, if they're replacing women with men who look like women, what else are they up to? At the end of this particular video, she says, or it says, whatever it is, like I said, I don't know, because you don't know what any of these, I don't even know whether half of these characters are even human beings. But anyway, let's call her she for just for anyway, she says we can do this with any species, and it's like, yeah, that's not good, right? Whatever way you look at it, it's not good. But of course they put it down to saving humanity and all this kind of stuff. They don't give a rat's arse about humanity. You're just a test subject.
Yeah, I mean, online it says 7 diseases that could be cured by CRISPR-Cas.
Yeah.
And all the other ones. So you could look it up on there. But you're talking about the... and I like the actual definition of what it says in... transhumanism is a movement and belief system that advocates the use of technology to enhance human cognitive and bodily functions, changing people. Yeah. Surpassing current biological limitations. So taking man
cyborgs
or woman past what the creator, God, whoever you believe created us, and genetically modifying people to make them
Yeah.
better athletes, better.
Yeah, well, like
well,
a Universal Soldier.
yeah,
Right,
yeah.
like Universal Soldier. But the problem with that is, again, if you believe a certain way, which I do, it quite clearly states that you are not supposed to do a bunch of stuff, and that is one of the things that you're not supposed to do. But again, just on a short run, because this, I mean, we could go on for
Yeah.
hours with this, but for a short run, there was talk earlier on that with all those people that went to the Britney Spears concert, you know, have probably got CRISPR-Cas now running rife in their bodies, which could affect them in different ways. Possibly could. There's no real proof out there that's the case, but they're talking about this, you know, the nanotechnology all the time, which is basically what it is. Whether it's in water, whether it's in the air, I mean, one way or another, they're going to get you. No one's escaping this. All the meat eaters aren't going to escape it. The vegans, they ain't going to escape it, right? If they're going to put this shit in stuff, they're going to put it in everything. The main point is that when it's time for you to depart this realm, you depart it with an ideology that you did not consent to any of this crap, right? I mean, I don't even want to go to the dentist anymore because I am very conscious of what they may inject into you at the dentist. And we've seen videos, maybe they're real, maybe they're not. But to me, they're showing you videos of what the dentists use, you know, if they're doing a root canal and so on, and they show you with the magnet. You've seen it, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I don't want any of that. I'm not consenting to that crap. So, you know, overall, again, those two things, you know, if the feminist movement, I mean, come on, girls, the feminist movement, you should be out there kicking these people's asses about what is going on, and that there are quite obviously dudes pretending to be women. And again, as I've said before, it's like, if you want to do that, you go ahead and do it. And if you're open about it, I don't have a problem with it. You'll have to deal with that later on. But what I can't put up with, and we said this earlier on, is the double standards. I'm sure we've all done it, double standards. But double standards where these people are pretending to be something that they're not, that's fraud. Whatever way you look at it, it's fraud. It's fraudulent activity. And 25 years ago, you go to jail for that. Well, there's not enough prisons to lock all these people up now because, you know, you look at them. And little Sarah, wherever she is, bless her heart, she was brilliant to do these things with. It was hilariously funny. She said to me, she goes, a long time ago, she goes, Gaz, it's all of them, mate. And I went, no, it's not. She goes, it's all of them. And I think she was pretty much 99% right. It is pretty much all of them.
It's not strange. I mean, it's just like what we said. I mean, you ever have your eyes open to and you start questioning things, and the more you dig and look into things, the more information is actually there, and it's been there for years. So, you know, when you talk about, and you've mentioned it, transhumanization, or what they classify as transhumanism, which was a term that was introduced by a guy called Julian Huskell in 1957, so it's been there. And what he was an English biologist and philosopher that talked about the dangers of altering people's DNA and the changes. But what he also says is he spoke about examples of transhumanization, including anti-aging. Well, we already know that there's a big
The super
thing
juice
in the world,
the super juice,
the super juice, which talks about anti-aging. But the other thing that he talked about from 1957 was artificial intelligence. And 2024 pushing into 2025. That's another subject we'll talk about.
Well, I mean,
it's a big push. AI.
The third Terminator movie, which was 2003, even in that they were talking about nanotechnology and all this kind of stuff back then, right? And that's why that word is used so much. You had the Apple Nano, the mini player. Then you got that idiot, that so-called an astronaut. I'd go back to the moon in a nanosecond. It's like, if that bloke really, come on, really, that guy. That's how that word starts to stick. You see, they're able. But again, Chris and Dom have done a whole series, and I would highly recommend, if you haven't listened to them, which you probably have, on the Huxleys. Mr. Chumley Warner, on the Huxleys. And that is exactly what the Huxleys were talking about back then, about how they were going to be able to control people's perceptions, control what they do, and to the point of, you know, like this AI actually being part of you. right? So you won't be just carrying it around in your phone or whatever. It will be actually part of you, like we've seen in many movies. And what do you think they're going to do when people get pissed off? They're going to press a little button, boom, and that will be the end of it. And millions of people will probably just keel over right there and then, because what a perfect... That's what I would do if I was one of the bad guys. If I was living on Dr. No Island for the James Bond, that's what I would be doing. I'd be working out a way of how to say, right, and like we've said, there's no more world wars, right? It's all nonsense. It's a psychological war. And they will, in one way or another, have a way of being able to control people. They're already doing it with those military devices where they can turn it on people, on crowds, and it makes them feel all uneasy and they start to get hot and everything and so on. So what do you think they, you just have to realise that none of these characters that we see are on the public side. They never have been. This is nothing new. This is just again, this is just, use the word history repeating itself. Anyway, so just to recap on that thing you just read, it's what's that site called? Horse.
Why it's called Horse? It's an American.
Of course, it's American. It would have to be, right?
Yeah. Horsenetwork.com, I think it was on, or something.
Yeah, I'll put the horsenetwork.com, something like that. I'll put the link in the description if we can find it. But now they've created a new disorder for people, after all these years, for people that are suffering from after the Olympics.
Yeah, I was just saying, wasn't I? Because you've got to give it a title, because Olympic closing ceremony disorder.
Yeah.
You have now been diagnosed with OCCD.
Yeah, which means you can get time off work. Your boss has got to pay you. As I said, I'm suffering from OCTD, Olympic ceremony T-virus disorder, because I haven't seen enough of the old. Anyway, so we're sort of coming to the end. It's just like a recap. There's so much nonsense out there. It's just hilarious once you start looking at it. And it's funny. I sent an email to. That was another thing I was going to mention as well. More on a music line, but to do with an old mate of mine. And I messaged Mark Devlin and heard back from Mark. And he basically said, "Sounds to me, mate, like you missed a bullet there." And I was like, "Yeah, I think so." And I sent it to Chris and Dom, a couple of other people as well. But we'll just go into that in a minute. But I emailed an old friend of mine the other day, because another friend of ours has just left the realm tragically. Haven't quite found out what happened, but somebody I played in a band with for years, my old mate Jez, I got a message to say that he's like 55. Boom. So we're not sure what happened there, but I pretty much, it's a safe bet to say that it's possibly to do with something.
It's that dreaded number.
Yeah, exactly. I messaged a friend of mine and I said, basically I'm coming to the end of it with the music thing. I don't want to be part of all of this. They said, just stay away from religion, Gaz, and you'll be fine. And I was like, I don't even know why you would even say that, because it isn't anything to do with religion at all, right? But if you read the Bible, and especially some of the major parts which are often brought up, it's literally like the book of events. You can literally see these things taking place. And I think, again, there was a reason that I started reading books, because I never used to read. I found it used to put me to sleep, like Bill Burr says, makes me sleepy. Now I can flick through that, which is basically what I do. I only flick through it. I'm not reading the whole thing from, just had to scratch my balls, run through things and study it so much. But there is definitely something that is at play.
It's biblical Wikipedia, isn't it?
Yeah, basically, you've got to be, you've got to put on the armour of faith in one form or another. And all those people out there, people that I know go, like, not in my lifetime, mate, and everything. It's like, you wouldn't know what's around the corner. I mean, I could bring up some subjects about some people that I know where, in my opinion, the way they act, they should be locked up. 20 years ago, they'd be locked up. I mean, you talk about hate speech. I hate these terms that have now become dictionary terms now, but hate speech. I'll give you some. I'll tell you about some people that I know where they are basically promoting the burning of certain buildings. Now, if that isn't bad news, I don't know what is. What if there are children in those buildings, and so on. But anyway, that's another story. But definitely, these are events that have been documented for years, and people now are starting to see. And again, it's dividing people. But I was just going to say before we get on to the old yellow and blue rollout again. Some time ago, I was doing some research on an old friend of mine, and I played in a band with for about 2 years, I suppose, and actually shared an apartment with him. This guy, I mean, everybody got on really well. We all used to go out together and so on, but he ended up marrying into basically music royalty. And I don't know whether he listens to any of these things, but I don't really care. But anyway, he married into music royalty. The chances of that were, 100 million to 1. And then I started looking at his family background, because I knew his dad and so on. And of course, they're not just, as Chris and Dom said, no plumbers here, mate. They're not. They were all friends with the royals and so on. Well, anyway, my old mate marries in, and it didn't work out and so on. He had a couple of kiddies. His eldest, so-called eldest son, has become famous already for doing nothing, basically doing nothing, just because his granddad's famous. And I clocked it the other day that my mate's son is now dating Billy Boy Gates's so-called daughter, and it's like, really? So of course, if I was still in contact or chummy with this guy, I now know somebody whose son is dating this character's daughter. Well, of course, we all know that Melvin P, as Matt calls him, is just an actor. He's not, that guy's really. I mean, come on. But anyway, so there you go. You see, and that's how those circles are kept going. And the piece actually said something along the lines of the power families of the world continuing their connections together through these interactions and so on. And I'm not saying that my mate's son's an evil character or anything like that, but you can just see how these people come together. What are the likelihoods of this bloke dating that bloke's daughter, or even knowing that bloke's daughter, unless they were all part of that same club? And that's something that we can go into. And that's, again, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to my old mate or something, but when you see how these bods manipulate the public and coerce the public into doing things, like I said, like going to the Britney Spears concert, which everybody knows what that means, and it doesn't end well for those people, then I'm afraid that's where the old line gets drawn. But anyway, to finish this one off here, we were talking a little while ago about how, because we all watched the news, and we don't watch the news, but we do check up on stuff. And this other guy we were listening to, he said, I like to keep an eye on what the enemy's doing. You've always done that, haven't you? So I started looking at a few things again, and some of the stuff on Sad Book and things like that, and these manipulated photographs of so-called celebrities. Suddenly, women in their 50s have suddenly got these massive boobs and little thin hips, and it's all photoshopped, obviously, right? But we were saying that for about 3 or 4 months now, well, more than that even, I would say almost half the year that's gone, the old yellow and blue, the Rusty Tank War, there's been virtually nothing online about that. And now all of a sudden, out of the blue, out of the yellow and blue, they're starting to roll out all the old pictures again, right? So you had a look, didn't you, on the expenditures of funds and money that is supposedly being sent.
That's just from the UK alone.
From the UK, yeah, just the UK alone.
12.7 billion in total from the UK.
Yeah, to this place, right?
I think out of that, only 5 billion of that was for public. The rest was for arms. And when you look at what the UK military is saying of the reduction of the forces, and when I was in, we're talking years ago, there was something like 120,000 serving military troops or whatever it was. My mate's more key on this type of stuff because I'm obviously well out of it by now, but now it's down to about 70,000, and the lack of vehicles and the lack of this and the lack of that, and they're sending 400 vehicles and however many millions of rounds of ammunition and stuff like that. It's quite interesting, particularly when you've got articles and you've got other people talking about pensioners and the cut of finances and support for pensioners in the UK. There's no assistance.
No.
properly for, and we don't like the term veteran, but they
No.
use it, veterans and stuff like that, but they can still say that they can print out 12.7 billion
Yeah, exactly.
pounds and send it to a country. And as I said, I was reading an article about Challenger 3.
Oh yeah.
Challenger 3 and how they're going to update using new technology the defensive armour on Challenger 3, and how many millions that's going to cost, because we've got to have the defensive capability, which I agree, being ex-military, but of course they're always talking about Russia. Now they're talking about they've got to have the defensive capability to support the Ukraine if necessary.
Yeah. But you know, again, as we've said, we're not mocking the place, and you know, it's quite obvious that there are things that have gone on in all these places, but they're not quite like what, it's quite obvious they're not quite like what they put out. I mean, they don't need to use old pictures and staged pictures and make out it was yesterday. But we were saying that we've looked at various things of like rockets coming out of bazookas and shit like that, which is, there's absolutely no way you can take a photograph of that. And also Neil showed me a video with them using this mortar. When the mortar went off and the guys ducked their heads down and the ground shook and this huge cloud of dust and shit came out the back, and he goes, that's a real one, that one isn't, that's a staged one, right? It's so obvious, you know. And as we've said about why do they have to stage these things, and Chris said again about it on the last yesterday's show, which was Saturday, why are there never any pictures of anybody actually doing anything? And I saw a great picture of 4 sort of big army trucks with those sort of pointy fronts, you know?
Yeah.
And they're against the road and they're all burnt out and destroyed, right? Except the road wasn't damaged, the field wasn't damaged, none of it was damaged, right? Okay, and it says military convoy, whatever, destroyed by Ukrainian rockets. And it's like, so every one of the rockets hit those things, but it never managed to damage the road, the tarmac, the trees, the bushes, nothing. It looks like they've just parked 4 old trucks there and took a picture of it. And there's regular cars driving up and down the road, you know. It's like, you wouldn't go anywhere near it, right, if that's the kind of thing that's been going on. Why is there no damage to the road or whatever? And you know that when you spray something up, shit goes everywhere, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It doesn't just, it's not that precise that it's that target. But we said, so we're through year 3, and for some strange reason, the Russians aren't able to sort this lot out, or vice versa. But if you go back and look at the D-Day World War II, and I'm going to do a thing with our mum about this, you know, you're led to believe that approximately, and you know, it tells you different things on different pages, 165,000 personnel went across the English Channel to hit the Normandy beaches. And the first off question is, where'd they get all them guys from in the first place, right? Because they, you know, if you've got Americans and Canadians, they had to bring them into the UK in the first place. How'd they get them all there without them being sunk on boats or shot out of the sky, aeroplanes and so on? That's a lot of people, right? And then within 5 hours of them landing on the beaches, or let's just say a day, let's give them a whole day, 24 hours. Within a day, they were able to take down the biggest defensive wall ever built by any military anywhere. Well, apart from things like the Great Wall of China and stuff like that, but you know. So they were able to take that down, and within 5 days, that whole coastline was taken, it was over. How is it possible to do that in 5 days, but it's not possible for these other characters to do this in 3 years? It just doesn't add up, does it?
No, and it's actually, as we talked about, been going on since Russia allegedly invaded the Ukraine in 2014 and pre that.
Yeah, and most of the people that we know that got the little flag out and all this kind of stuff. And again, we're just going over old ground, because it's like, do you really think that there are troops running around between houses taking pot shots at each other? No, they would just carpet bomb that place and eradicate everybody. If they wanted to do that, of course they would. That's what they've done before. But again, the point of it is not to go over old ground and go, let's put some more pictures up of the Instagram girl soldiers and the rockets sticking out the ground that's obviously been placed in there and looks like a piece of drain pipe. But they're rolling it out again. The winter's coming, they're rolling it out again. They're using the same pictures, the same stupid so-called press people in bright pink jackets and everything, you know, super prime targets for any snipers. They're telling people that they're spending your money, and people are still going along with it, even though in 2014 most people didn't even know where the place, they couldn't even spell the place, let alone know what was going on there. Then you look at some of the other places where their things are going on. Nobody gives a rat's ass about the poor kids in Syria, right? Oh yeah, but that's different. They're all that sort of person. We don't care about them, right? And again, that's how the public is manipulated into a way of thinking. We know people who apparently went there to pick up refugees and take them home and all this kind of stuff and so on and so forth. Are they doing that every year then? No. That was all done just to make themselves look good.
Yeah,
right?
The millions of tons of first aid equipment, clothing, tents, all those types of things. And they're talking about millions of tons.
Yeah.
From around the world that have been taken there. Recently I had an ex-military guy that I know and talked to you about it, who's, as far as I know, drove into the Ukraine. Last message I've got was basically, if you need any contact, my 2 contacts are these people, and that he was in Kiev. Well, I don't think so.
No, Kiev.
I don't think Kiev.
No, there's no.
It's just like there's no way he's going to be able to drive in there.
No. Well, those
in a UK vehicle.
Yeah, we saw those characters. The bloke outside the embassy, the little old chap who's in his 70s who goes, "I'm 60. I just got in. I've got a little bit of a cold, so I've got a mask on so people can't see who I am." And he just happens to be wearing a blue jacket that is the exact colour that matches with the yellow flowers, right? Yeah. No one gave a shit in 2014, right? But once it comes out on the news, everybody now is, and you can see what they're telling you again is not the truth. And nobody can prove it because nobody's allowed to go there, right? And you pulled up a list of countries that you're not allowed to go to now.
Well, the UK Home Office
advises you not to go.
Advises you not to go to 29 countries,
and all those countries are places where you go, well, I wouldn't want to go there anyway.
Well, they're all countries which people are interested in going to, but they've all got some type of conflict or history of conflict or possibility of terrorist attacks, weather problems, all those type of things. You know, tsunamis, disasters. But they're all the type of countries that get publicised all the time. Russia being one of them, the Ukraine, Sudan. There's a big list that you could look online. Basically saying as well that any insurance that you may take out, if you decide to travel to these countries and something happens to you, the UK government won't assist you in any way whatsoever. No. So it's advisory, and we do know there are things going on. There are. Things going on. It's just the way it's publicised.
Well, like I said, I think a lot of these countries are places where the old world history was a lot greater than they've ever told us, and they've just gone in and mullered it up so that people can't go and look and see that these places were once great places with amazing buildings and amazing culture, and they just gone in and smashed it all up. That's why in Africa they've still got people carrying dirty water around in containers. If they, kids carrying water for 2 miles for their village, if they actually wanted to help those people, they could help them very, very easily, and in a year they could pretty much clean all that up, but they won't because they don't want those people becoming independent again, in my opinion anyway. But on that note, with old buildings, and we'll end on this one because it's quite long, but the old world history building stuff, how did they make these amazing buildings and so on? How were they able to move these stones? We've talked about all that before, but Neil took me we went to Rocamadour, which is very famous here. But we went on a walk, didn't we? Out the back. There's a back walk.
16k hike going out.
And
it's the valleys.
It's not hard going, but it's not simple, right? But you go up through this sort of valley. There's these sort of a stream runs pretty much all the way down, doesn't it? Mm. And he said to me, he goes, "You wait till we get up to the top." He said, "You won't believe what's up the top, right?" So we go up through this, and we're talking about a valley 50, 60 foot across, I suppose, in feet. Not very wide. And a path that's just about big enough to have 2 people walk on it, with a sheer drop down into the rocky stream and all this kind of stuff. And we get up there, and there's these houses. Now I've made a video on it which I'm going to put up. But there's these houses, right? And he said, "Look at these houses there. They're all overgrown now and everything." And you just got to ask the question, why are they there, and who built them there? And he said, didn't you? You go, oh, that's nothing. You wait till we get around the corner. We get around the corner and there's a mill, right, with a like a big pond with, I mean, would be brilliant in your back garden. Again, absolutely perfect if you got a spirit level out. I would imagine the walls are still completely plumb.
I took one up there, didn't I, on the 26k height that we did. I took one
vertical.
red one up, and they were perfect.
Perfect, right?
Perfect.
And then where this wall is, these giant stones, these giant stones with the water running through into this enormous pond, absolutely would be brilliant in your garden. Have a little pond and everything. And then we go up a bit further, and there's another one built underneath the sort of cliff face. It almost looks like the building itself was engulfed by the land, doesn't it? Like the building was there and the land grew around it. That's the only way you can explain it. And these freaking stones are massive. And we got talking, or Neil got talking to a French couple who sort of, because it was quite wet, wasn't it, that day, and it's slippery. How they were able to build this thing, let alone how they were even able to get the stones there in the first place, and they weren't carved out of the rock.
No, you can tell they're not carved.
These are all bought there, and they've restored a lot of it. They've put wooden beams, wooden headers and that over big thick oak ones, and rebuilt this thing. But when you see this video,
particularly the one up the very top. I mean, the ones as you go up, the moulins as you go up, and they are mills because they've got the great.
They've got the big millstone wheels in there.
Yeah, which you can tell have been cast. They've not been hand carved, because when you look at them generally, you know, it's a piece of concrete with a hole in the middle of it. But the ones up, particularly in that middle one, where they got the big metal, like they do with the old cartwheels.
That's it. Yeah. They're in segments like pieces of cheese.
Yeah, you can see that they've been cast and put in. They've not been hand grinded out. And,
no.
I read an article about what the grooves in there were actually for, and that was to assist in dispersing the flour.
That's right, pushing it out
and all that. But they're too perfect to have been hand carved.
Yeah.
Too perfect.
No chips in them or anything like that.
It's like you putting a metal rod on a piece of concrete and leaving it there. It sets, and then you pull it out, and then you rub it over, and you've got a perfect straight line. If you were to do that with, tools and try and chip it out, it would all chip out.
Of course it would.
So you got to look at that. But the one at the top in particular, when you post the video, you did the thing of the dam, didn't you?
Massive stones.
Yeah, massive stones, and it is perfect at right angles.
The wall, there's a wall that goes round, which is curved, which collects the water
and filters it into another.
It into a system and comes out of the system and then down into this sort of low, small valley. And the pieces of stone. Of course, the film doesn't really give it any justice because you can't go and stand next to it. Got to be 2 meters long by a meter by a meter. Massive pieces of stone. But not only the place that it is and what's built there, also what you have to remember as well is the product that they were milling or whatever. They had to get it there in the first place. So let's just say it was flour. So they had to get it there. Then, after it was milled and bagged, somebody had to come and pick it up. Well, it's at least an hour's walk from Rocamadour, which is the only village, to where these mills are. So unless there was lots and lots of people living around there in small houses, which of course there isn't, there's nothing there. It's all farmland. There's nothing there now. What were they doing there? Why were they doing it there? How did they do it, But it's right there in front of you. And we'll do another one on another friend of ours, a French guy, whose family are working on Notre Dame. They have one of the only machines in the world that can carve these pieces of stone. And we asked him what he felt about how the original, or our mum asked him, how the original elaborate stonework was done. And obviously, he thinks it was all carved by hand, even though he has great difficulty doing it with this millions of euros worth of machine. We thought that was quite funny because, again, it's another generational thing of being told a certain thing and believing it and never questioning it, never going, if it takes us this machine to be able to do that, which isn't as good as the original, how do they do that? But anyway, that's another subject. obviously I've edited some of this down. We're going to be doing some more of these. I think one of the most important things, and again, it's another thing that it says basically in the Bible, that our job is to expose evil and lies. That's what we're here for. And again, we're not use the term, but we're not taking the piss out of anybody. But if you can't see the fact that these bods are lying to you, then you're not quite there yet. And there are more and more people again that are starting to understand. And what I would say as well is, all you people that are on like Flat Earth British, Sheep Farm, so on and so on, don't just put stupid comments on, like, yeah, great, whatever. Share the videos. The more stuff that goes out, the more people see it, and it is showing that that people are aware that a lot of the stuff we've been told is nonsense and will continue to be. And I would highly recommend that, as this winter season thankfully is upon us, because we are sick to death here of mosquitoes, which is another subject in itself, and now we've got the pox on the agenda. Stay away from the Britney Spears concerts. Stay right away, because a concoction like that is not going to do you any good in one way or another. That's why the doctor was used to ask you if you were on any other medication before he gave you another lot. Well, they don't do that anymore. So we'll end on that one. Thanks for sitting in, mate.
That's right.
And we'll do a load more of these.
Yeah.
We'll do a few through the old Sphincter net as well when you get home. So that's it, us signing off. Thanks for listening in, and we'll catch you all again soon.